Hello, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to talk about how to go from ideation to goal. This was a direct request from one of you when I asked for topic ideas, questions, struggles that you're having when it comes to goals. And somebody submitted that they were having issues going from the idea phase, the things that they think they want in their life, all of the ideas in their head, their big dreams, and transitioning those to goals down on paper that you can actually make progress on. Obviously, step 0 is to have those ideas. I'm gonna go through the 3 steps to take it from idea to goal, but you've gotta have those ideas and those dreams. And maybe for you, they're really obvious. Like, you know what your dream is, you know what that vision is, but maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, I don't really know what I want my life to look like. I don't really have any ideas except what I see other people share. I don't really feel like I have any big, scary dreams. First off, you don't need big, scary dreams or big ideas to create goals. You just need some ideas. And that is why I did create a freebie of how to figure out what your goals are. It is a video plus a downloadable. If you have not snagged it yet and you are somebody who is struggling with just having the ideas to even transition them into goals, go download that freebie and watch that free training, and that will be your starting point to coming up with the ideas. And now let's talk about the 3 steps to getting those ideas from idea phase into goals. Step 1 is figuring out, what does that idea actually look like for you? You as an individual, your life, your desires, your preferences. Because there are a lot of ideas and dreams that we all have in common, right? I wanna own a house someday. I want a cleaner house. Maybe you wanna lose weight, you wanna exercise more, maybe you wanna read more, maybe you wanna go back to school or change jobs. Those are all kind of generic ideas. And step 1 is taking that generic idea or dream and getting really clear and really specific on what it means for you and your life. So some general questions that you can ask yourself when you're trying to get from that more vague state to specific to you is, why is this goal important to me? What is it about that goal that matters to me? Because we may have similar initial ideas, but the why behind that could be very different. Take buying a house for an example, right? There are some people who want to buy a house. The why behind the house is so that they are investing in something, investing in the market, in real estate. That's my husband's why. He wants to own property to invest and diversify our portfolio of assets. And so with that driving why, the specific of what that goal could look like doesn't necessarily have to mean that buying a house is our house that we actually live in on a regular basis, right? It could be an investment property. But maybe for somebody else, buying a house means that they don't have to move their family anymore. They're putting down roots and they're staying in one spot. They're not at the risk of rent going up or landlord changes, and they're buying a house so that they can have their kids be in one place through the end of schooling. Or for somebody else, maybe it's so they can make changes, right? Maybe they want to be able to paint the walls and blow out walls and replace cabinetry and countertops and all that stuff, and they really want to create a house that they absolutely love. And so in order to have that freedom and flexibility, they need to buy a house. All of those whys lead to the same goal, but the why behind it could make the ultimate decision and the outcome of that goal look very different. Another question to ask yourself is, how do I want to feel at the end of this goal? And I mean specific. Don't just say, I want to feel accomplished, successful. Yeah, okay. That when we set goals, we do want to feel accomplished and successful. How do you want to feel related to that goal? How do you want that goal to make you feel? Sometimes it's easier to think about the negative thing that you're feeling now and flip it on its head. And the opposite is how you want to feel at the end of it. Let's take the cleaning house example, right? Let's say your goal is you want your house to be cleaner. Well, how do you want to feel in your home? What do you want your home to make you feel like when it is cleaner? And what does that look like for you? Because everybody's definition of clean is very different. Maybe you also discover clean isn't the actual word of what you're trying to go for. Maybe it's decluttered, maybe it's bigger, maybe it's smaller, maybe it's more cozy, maybe it's more colorful and happy and uplifting. I want you to answer, how do I want to feel at the end of this goal? And that can really help you get clear on what that goal, that idea means to you. And then the last question I want you to ask yourself or think about as you're working on this step is, if timeline were no object, so we're not trying to do this by a certain date. We're not trying to finish this on a certain timeline within the year, within 2 years, within a month. I mean, whatever, no timeline. Timeline hats off. What does the end state look like? This goal is no longer on my list. What does the end state look like? Let's use that example of maybe changing jobs or going back to school. What is the end state of that entire goal? Maybe it's to have a job that looks like this, right? Maybe it's to be doing a specific type of job. Maybe it's to have a job that works from home. Maybe it's to have a job that pays more money. What is the end state that you are working towards? And get as specific as you possibly can. I want you to pretend that you are like a reporter and you're asking yourself all the details. I need all of the little itty bitty details of what the end state of that goal looks like for you. Not just I want a new job. What does that job look like? What's different about that new job from your current job? And get really, really clear on what it is. Because without knowing those details, you can't even begin to set goals and really can't even begin to pick action steps. So when it comes to an idea that you have, something that you want to change about your life or implement in your life, ask yourself, why is that goal important to me? How do I want to feel at the end of that goal? And when this goal is done, timeline aside, what does that end state look like? And how specific can I get, right? Going back to the reading example, I want to read more. Okay, great. Why? Why do you want to read more? What makes that important to you? Is it because reading is really restful and you want to incorporate it as rest? Well, that might lead itself to be more of a daily type goal as opposed to a number of books goal. Or do you want to read so that you can consume more nonfiction and personal development books? Well, that might lend itself to a numerical book goal. How do you want to feel at the end of this? I want to feel rested and rejuvenated. That might lend itself to what types of books you're going to pick when you are setting this reading goal. And at the end state, what does this goal look like? It could be that reading is a part of my everyday life. It could be that I pick up books instead of turn on Netflix. It could be that I am growing my education by reading more books. That one simple goal of reading more can look very different depending on how you answer those questions. Okay, so we got clear on what the goal looks like, what the idea looks like for us. Now we are going to pick a timeline. And that might mean you're gonna adjust what you came up with in the first answer, because obviously I told you to take your timeline hat off. Well, now we're putting it back on. And when we're setting a goal, we're picking a timeline to go with that goal. I've talked about this before. In fact, I did a whole video on goal timelines. So if you do feel like this is something you struggle with, I would encourage you to go back and rewatch that video with whatever goal or idea it is that you came to this video with. I have talked about this before as it relates to my videos. If you are the kind of person who watches the videos right when they go live, if you're like me, which by the way, if you are, thank you. Thank you. Just, I can't say thank you enough. If you're like me and when the video comes in your subscription feed, it goes into your watch later folder and you try to clear that out on a pretty regular basis and you watch videos pretty timely to when the creator puts them out. But truthfully, even if you're watching any one of my videos when they pop up for you, when YouTube suggested or whatever, you're watching those videos with your current goals in mind. That's what naturally happens. Whatever you're currently thinking about, the goals that are currently in your head, those are the ones you're thinking about while you're consuming that information. So some of them, depending on the topic, you might really benefit from going and rewatching with your current goal that you are really prioritizing or thinking about right now in the forefront of your mind. So even if you've already watched that timeline video, if it's been a while and you have a different goal that you're thinking of with this video, I would suggest that you go back and rewatch it. The thing I want you to remember when it comes to goal timelines is the further out you go, the less you know. So the more vague your goals need to be. So if you're gonna set a goal for just the next month, you can get a lot more specific than if you are setting a goal for the next year. So talking about reading more and knowing how many books you wanna read, you might be able to pick a number for the year, but then your year might get thrown off and you've got to be prepared that that number might not happen. So maybe you don't pick a number for the year, or maybe you pick a range of a number for the year. But if you're gonna say, oh, for the next month, I'm gonna set a goal to read 3 nonfiction books, and you can kind of do the rough math and figure out that that is more feasible, then that is a reasonable goal. But you're gonna take the information that you gathered in step 1 and you're going to maneuver it in whatever way makes sense to attach a timeline to it. And now if you're watching this video right when it goes live, that timeline might be Q4. It might be what you're going to accomplish for the rest of 2023. You've got 3 months. What is it that you're going to check in? Maybe you're watching this video closer to the new year and you're thinking of the entire year of 2024. Again, the further out, a whole year is a lot of time. A lot can change during a year. Can you make that goal a little bit vaguer? Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have those details that you came up with in step 1. Those details are still going to be helpful when it comes to picking your action steps, but making the overarching goal a little bit more vague. And that leads us right into step 3. You're gonna add a little bit more clarity and you're gonna define that goal thoughtfully. So you're gonna take all the information from step 1, you're gonna take the timeline that you're focused on in step 2, and you're gonna clearly define what it is that you are working on. And when I say clearly define, again, I don't necessarily mean an exact number, a really specific thing that if you don't accomplish it, you are an absolute failure. What I mean is that you are thoughtful with your word choices. You are picking words that make sense for your specific needs and your specific ideas. Because the words that you choose when you're defining that goal are so important. Even if it feels like, well, I'm just writing the goal down on paper, like, it doesn't really matter if I'm really that careful. And I would argue that it does, because you're going to then pick action steps based on whatever it is that you wrote down. Your brain is going to register that that is the goal that you're working on. So when you are thoughtful and deliberate with the words that you're picking when you define that goal, it's going to not only make it easier for you to pick action steps, but your subconscious is going to have that constant reminder that that is what you're working towards. My favorite example of this is somebody that I worked with one-on-one, who when she submitted her one-on-one application, she said, I want to work on my morning routine. And I said, that is a great goal for working together one-on-one. I would love to help you with that. Let's go. And on the very first call, we basically go through this process, this entire process that I just walked you through. That is what I walk one-on-one clients through in call number 1. I ask a lot of follow-up questions. I take a lot of notes, and we get really clear on what that goal means to them and what the timeline looks, both the long-term timeline that when they're finishing that goal, and then also the shorter term that we're gonna work on during our time together. And what came up for her while we were answering all of these questions is that she truly wanted a calm, peaceful morning routine. Those are the words that kept coming up when she was answering questions. And it was really clear when she talked about how her work day feels chaotic and she gets stressed and there's so much going on, and that she really just wanted her morning to have that calmness, that peacefulness, so that she at least had that as part of her day. No matter what happened at work or after work, she at least had some of her day that was calm and peaceful. The other thing that kept coming up was that she wanted it to be consistent. There were some days that she got to work from home and some days she was going into the office, and that made it a little bit more difficult for her to have a morning routine that she did every single day. There were some days that she could do things and not other things, but she really wanted her routine to be consistent, which, by the way, consistent doesn't have to mean the same thing every single day, but that's a whole nother video. I actually do think I have a video on like consistency. Anyways, what we ended up defining her goal as is implement a calm, consistent morning routine. That is how we defined it. And those were the guiding words or the things that we kept in mind as we went along the rest of the process. So when we broke down the goal, we brainstormed any possible activity she could include in her morning routine. But then as we went through them, I literally for every step would ask her, would that make you feel calm? And there were some that were like 100%, that's gonna make me feel calm. There were some steps, obviously, like taking a shower, that had to be incorporated regardless to her morning routine. And then there were some steps that were totally optional that she was like, no, that would not make me feel calm. Cross it off. Do not put it as part of your morning routine then. And then at the same time, every single step, could you do this consistently? And if the answer was yes, it went as an option to include. If the answer is no, I couldn't do that every single day, only if I'm working from home or only if I'm going into the office, then it didn't become a part of her morning routine. And that is how we built a morning routine for her that fit within the definition that made sense for her and her life. So that is why you have to do step 1 to get really clear on what it means. And then you're picking words that make sense for both your idea and the timeline that you're working on, and you're defining that goal and bringing it all together. So that's the process, but I wanna give you 2 bonus mindsets to really think about as you're going through this process. Number 1 is that nothing is off limits. I want you, especially in step 1, to just dream. I want you to think about literally what is the ideal state, because I've said this before and I'll say it again, all goals are achievable on the right timeline. And in step 1, we haven't implemented the timeline yet. So I want you to really dream, because you really can do anything that you set your mind to. And so I want you to know that it's not off limits. You can clarify it later. You can trim things down if you need to. You can get more specific. You can get more vague, but no idea is a bad idea. And then mindset number 2 that is really important to remember is you can change your mind. You are not writing these things in stone. You are not making these decisions and you never get to pivot or change. In fact, I highly recommend that you do reevaluate and change your goals when you need to. In fact, I did a whole video. I feel like I've referenced a lot of videos within this one that was not in my notes and not my intention, but I did a whole video on refreshing your goals, because you do have to refresh them. But remembering that you have permission to change your mind at any point allows a little bit of breathing room. It gives you a little bit of space to be like, I'm making this decision with what I know right now, or I'm defining what I want this to look like with what I know right now. I mean, if you had asked 10 years ago, Laken, what her ideal job would look like, I'm pretty sure she would not have said, sitting here in my home office filming a YouTube video. I'm pretty sure she would have said a fellow of the Society of Actuaries, some VP level position at some big insurance company. I may have ended up here in Chicago with a different company. It may not have been with the same company, but it would have looked very different than where I ended up. But that doesn't mean that defining that goal at that stage of my life and the steps I took towards that goal were bad or wrong. It was right at the time. It was what I was working towards, and I don't regret any of that. I learned a lot and grew a lot as a person from that process. And that same thing is gonna be for whatever goal it is that we're talking about. If you decide that right now you want to read more nonfiction books because you want to focus more on personal development, so you set a goal to do that, and then you realize you don't like consuming nonfiction books through reading, you'd rather listen to podcasts or sign up for a course, you can change your mind and you cross that goal off and you add in a different goal or you go a different direction. Goals are meant to support you in creating the life that you want to live, not make you feel like you're trapped in a box that you can't get out of. So I hope that this video was helpful. I feel like there was a lot to this, but at the end of the day, if you have something that you want to work on and any kind of idea that sparks in your head, I want you to pick whatever timeline it is that you're gonna focus on for now, and then I want you to get clear on what that goal means to you for that timeline that you're working on. If you have any other questions, please leave them down in the comments below. If you did like this video, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every week focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. Why does that sound funny? Because how do I want to line?